Awesome. Well, I'm stoked to have you on today, Dave. Thank you for your time. I've been wanting to do this thing about ask a ski instructor because there's so many times I'm skiing or snowboarding and I always have questions. And we write a lot of content about beginner ski resorts or how to get into skiing, what to wear skiing, all those things, but we haven't focused so much on lessons and the skill side, which I think is way more important than anything else for safety, for enjoyment, for injury prevention, all those things. So I really am grateful for your time today to really dig into ski lessons. And the things we're talking about are probably going to relate equally to snowboard lessons as well. Okay. So we'll say ski, but it kind of relates to both downhill sports at a resort. So I guess the most common question we get on our site is, are ski lessons worth it? Why take a ski lesson? Could you dig into why take it from a professional versus learning from a friend, and what the differences might be and what you see in the industry and the number of years you're teaching?
Yeah. So the best thing is to seek out a certified instructor. So the Professional Ski Instructors of America has certifications at multiple levels of those certifications, whether it's a beginner, intermediate skier, or an advanced skier. So when you get a certified instructor, they have been trained and learned the fundamentals of skiing. And they understand what we have is a real and what we have is ideal, and how do we make that prescription for change to get them to ski in an ideal manner. So when you have that understanding of skiing, you can make the corrections that need to be made. If it's a beginner, is great because now you're starting with a blank slate. They don't have any bad habits yet. They're just getting into it, and so that's ideal for an instructor. For here's the information, but when you have an intermediate or a skier, a client, you may have to make corrections in what they have learned in the past, especially if it wasn't through a certified instructor. If it's from their buddies or their a family member, they may already have bad habits built into their skiing, which you have to undo. So starting with a certified instructor is your best approach to it. You'll learn about the equipment. You'll learn about the safety part, the skier's code. You'll learn the correct biomechanics needed to make the skiing progression and to enjoy it. There's nothing worse. There's nothing more frustrating when a skier says, like, I just don't enjoy it because I get going too fast. So you have to, if you learn correctly from the beginning, you're going to enjoy it a lot more. It's going to be safer for you also.
Then what are some of the certifications to look for when you're looking for an instructor? If you're a beginner, if you're going to a typical resort, is it assumed that most instructors are certified? Or if you're looking to even pick a resort and where to learn skiing, what are some things to look for in terms of certified instruction?
Well, I can only speak for our staff, but not everyone is certified. We do have a portion of the staff that is uncertified. That would be, dedicated for children, the 4 to 6 year olds, because there's not a lot going on there from a biomechanics. The children are going to, basically you want to make them be able to slide, but have a good day. That's the biggest thing. Fun is your utmost piece to that, having a fun day. Once you get into your beginner level or your intermediate level, usually they'll be certified skiers. Most of our people that teach the never evers, adults, they're usually at least a level 1 certification. So you make sure that the school that they have, the ski school, has a certification program in place, and you'll see that usually when you apply for the lesson online. You'll see that yes, we employ Professional Ski Instructors of America certified instructors.
Okay. What are some of the things you can expect in your beginner lesson when you're just starting off skiing? You're going to show up on the mountain. What does a typical day look like? Lesson.
Well, what we'll do is, first thing I do is make sure that they're dressed, sunscreen, they have some type of goggle or sunglass, they're hydrated, and they've had breakfast or something like that. They've had a meal. So that's the first thing. And then I go into, when did you arrive? Because, we are at 9,000 feet even at the beginner level. And a lot of, Western resorts are the same thing. So, when did you arrive, and have you had a couple of days to acclimate? How your sleeping pattern? We want to make sure that they're ready to go physically, mentally. That's the first thing. Then what we'll do is we'll talk about, the equipment, how to buckle boots, talk about the ski, how to put it on, put it off, and the mechanics of the ski. We'll start with how to walk in the boots, how to traverse in the boots, how to go up a hill in the boots. Then we work into sliding, where we place one ski on, we'll begin on sliding, which is one ski forward, backwards in a circle. And then we work to two skis, and eventually we get to a glide, a straight line glide. We introduce the wedge. Our school uses the wedge-based approach to it. So we will introduce the wedge as a braking mechanism in a very shallow beginner area. Then we eventually get to turning left and right, guiding the skis in an arc and making a turn to like a J. And then we connect those turns, and now we begin skiing. And ideally, in a 2.5 hour lesson, we would hopefully get to the lift mechanisms, so how to board the lift, how to ride the lift, how to disembark on the lift. And so make sure that, that would be ideal. If we could get to that, that's a perfect lesson for me. If I can get my skier to know how to use the lift, then they become independent. And then the next, the rest of their vacation, they could come back to me for another lesson, but they could also work on it themselves.
Cool. That's amazing. Yeah, there's so much that goes into it. And I know this is very individual based, but if you had to generalize, so you mentioned the ideal lesson is 2.5 hours or 1 half day lesson with you, and then they could be independent. Would you say how many lessons would a beginner need? What does that range look like for you? What do you see when you're teaching beginners?
I would tell you probably 50% get to the lift after 2.5 hours. Well, then the other 50% would need a second lesson. So I would say, they could become pretty independent at the most after 2 lessons. So that's what I could share.
One of the things that keeps people from taking lessons is the cost, right? And you probably experienced that in your personal life, where people are like, I'm just going to learn from a friend. Ski lessons are too expensive. Mm-hmm. Could you go into a little bit of a breakdown of why they're so expensive, the operations of the ski resort, and then like how the cost breaks down, and is the full fund and amount going to the ski instructor, and how does that work out?
Yeah, there's a small fraction of that going to the instructor. You got to remember to run a ski resort, it costs a lot of money. I was working for vehicle maintenance, so I was working all the snowcats for a number of years, and just the amount of labor, parts, and maintenance that have to go into maintaining the equipment, just the snowcats and snowmobiles and stuff like that is unbelievable. It's not billable labor. That's internal. So then the lift maintenance, all that takes place during our down hours of the insurances. So, when you look at, everyone thinks those prices are very high for a ticket. Well, if you've seen it from the inside, like I have, you see why they are. It takes a lot to keep a ski resort running. So the ski school is one of the places that they could make money, have good income. So there is overhead in the ski school, which I'm not, I don't know enough about it being in the management side of that, but it's a place where we can make, as a resort, we can make money. And so if you see the cost of certifications for the instructors, it gets quite expensive to go through, the training, the clinics, the exams. It's all very costly for us. So it's a way for us to make our money back. It's not that much different from if you were to hire a personal trainer at a gym, a personal trainer on your own to come to the house, you would be paying probably $100, $150 an hour. Okay. So if you look at the cost of a group lesson, it's probably in that realm. It's probably comparable to that.
That's a good segue to group versus private. Obviously, private is going to be the way to go because you could probably get 100% of the attention of the instructor. The group lessons, do you have any tips on how you can maybe try to hack your way into a smaller group? Is that showing up on a weekday or?
Yeah, that would probably be if you want to get yourself into, because I've had group lessons that were basically privates. It was just one person, 2 people, a couple, whatever. And so that would happen. Yeah, definitely midweek. You're right there. Weekends are just, and especially holidays,
yeah.
That you're going to be in a group of 5 or 6 or more. And so then it gets you don't have that one-on-one attention as you would in a private.
Yeah.
So I would tell you, if, in the very beginning, a group lesson's fine, but I have had private beginners, never ever privates. If people can swing that, sometimes that's where they want to go. They want to just have an instructor, but certainly group lessons are a good way to start. Okay. If you're looking to, for economy.
Yeah.
And then as you get better, you may want to, seek out a private.
Kids lessons are probably a huge thing. What is your recommendation if you had to put your kids into skiing today? What would your progression look like? How do you get your kids into skiing?
Well, there's several ways. We can do group lessons where they're limited to about 5, and that would be from 7 to 12. Our 4 to 6-year-olds, and 4 being the youngest, are they're in a different place called the Bear's Den, and then so they're in a separate area. They're at the top, at the lodge, and then they use their own little area with their own lift, their own magic carpet. So, but the 7 to 12s, that's usually where I'm in that group range. Sometimes if I'm not working with the adults, they're usually limited to 5. And so that works out pretty well. There are other programs too, where once the kids are at that intermediate level or they can ski relatively well on their own, then we have other things called snowburners. We have other groups. We have development teams, racing. They can go into different, whatever their interest is. Yeah. So there's other groups that they can do, but I would tell you it seems that the 7 to 12 groups work out pretty well. I had a few of those lessons this year so far, and they've just worked out well. As far as it's nice to have those kids, that, again, just like the adults, make sure they're dressed warmly, they have their sunscreen on, et cetera. And then of course we have the parents' numbers. And for me, I always just make sure that any kind of medical conditions I need to be aware of. This comes from my ski patrol days. So I just happen to ask that even of adults, I need to know, do you have any, replacement parts, or do you have any injuries with the kids? I want to certainly know, mom and dad's phone number, anything I need to know about their medical, if there's something I need to be aware of.
So how do you deal with reluctant kids that maybe have a fear of falling or getting into the outdoors? Not just kids, maybe this could apply to adults too. And what are some of your tips for getting people over those hurdles of fear and progressing to the next level when it's not the skill that's maybe keeping them back, but it's the fear of going faster, the fear of standing at the edge of a steep hill and not being able to commit?
Well, the big thing is not what we call over terraining. So if our client or our student does well on the greens, we should reinforce what we've learned rather than just start moving into something steeper. And that's where the fear usually comes. Again, just like you said, speed. My speed gets out of control. You hear that all the time. But we need to make sure we're rock solid on our turns and our skills before we go into something that's a little more challenging. Because a lot of times people will give you a goal. They want, especially adults, they want, here's what I want to be able to accomplish at the end of the lesson. That may or may not happen, depending on how far out the goal is from where they are. So with the children, if they're showing some type of fear, we may take a break. And for me, I always get down to their level. I take my skis off, I get on my knees, and I want to see eye to eye to them because I'm tall. And, it's kind of overwhelming sometimes to have someone they're looking up. So, and this has worked well for me, even when I was a patroller. It's even compounded with an injury. But if someone's is expressing fear, I get down eye to eye to them and what are you afraid of? Tell me what's scaring you. And this way we kind of dig down and then let's move away from that, or let's not do that. We're going to go somewhere where we're going to have fun. Okay. And so we'll just refocus as long as they can tell me what their fear is.
Okay.
And adults, the same thing. They're much more verbal. So it's easy to find out, dig down.
Well, I think that's really important to take lessons because sometimes we're afraid to tell our friends and family about our fears or our nerves because they might just say, oh, come on, you got it, which is not the answer in terms of skill or in terms of addressing the underlying fears or whatever that might be happening.
Right.
So I think being able to talk to a professional or talk to a third party is easier and kind of helps in that way.
With the children, we may touch on this. Parents. Okay. So is that a good thing or is that not a good thing? Well, it's been proven that it's better that the parents aren't there because a lot of times they'll listen to an outside person much better than they will their parents. And having raised three of my own, I totally understand it and I get it. So to have a helicopter parent or someone hovering is usually not good. Like I said, I have their contact information. If things go sideways, I can call them.
Going back to just the fear of injury, a lot of people are afraid of doing outdoor activities like downhill skiing because injury is just, everyone's afraid of getting injured and assume that if you do these sports, you're going to get injured, right? And injury is a big component of the outdoor sports, but I like to think that it is of sitting on the couch at home too. If you do that over time, you're going to have issues. You're going to have back problems and all those things. What are some of your tips in terms of before you even get to the mountain? I know you live a very focused lifestyle that's wants to make sure that you can ski forever. What are some of the things you do off the mountain in terms of fitness or mental preparation that help you prevent injury and prevent accidents even?
Yeah, just like in any sport, we need to train for it. There are ski specific exercises that we can do that will just enhance our skiing ability. But just like in any sport, we want resistance training and a cardio side of it too. Anything in the ski realm would be, anything that has some balance to it. That's going to assist you, making sure that obviously you're in shape somewhat. Your weight is where it should be. Your body mass index is where it should be for your size. Because I do have people that come to me that have never skied and they're not very active, and it makes it very difficult, to get them to perform the way they think they should, and the way I think they should too. So coming into a ski lesson in fit is a good thing, is a very beneficial thing. And like I said, you can go online and you can take, ski specific resisted training that are going to help you out.
Yeah. And a lot of the people think, oh, it's downhill skiing that I don't need as much cardio. I don't need as much, cardio or energy to be able to downhill ski because I'm not having to do a lot of cardio, but it's surprising how much energy you expend while even going downhill skiing. What are some of the things that people don't think about that use up energy and focus that require cardio and good physical hold?
Well, if we have like variable conditions where we had a snowstorm and we have some powder or chopped conditions, that makes it more difficult. If you have any loss of equipment and you have to hike back up, especially here at elevation, a lot of our clients come from the southern part of the country where the elevation is much lower. So they notice right away that even climbing stairs, it's a big deal. So you could lose equipment, have to climb back up. You could get yourself into a place where you need to walk back out. Just take your skis off, walk back out. You could be in a place where you're up to your waist in snow if it's in a soft area or true. So yeah, there's a lot of places where, you can expend a lot of energy. And if you're just skiing the groom, you still have all that physics. You're making turns and the snow is basically pushing up on you and you have muscular resistance to that. And that is all expenditure especially at altitude.
Yeah. Those are amazing points. Thank you for covering those. What do you recommend for skiers that are progressing? They're completed the beginner lesson. They're, a few days in, they've done maybe a trip or two and they feel stuck at that next level, right? Their friends are starting to do moguls and they're not sure or they get intimidated. Progression, what does that look like? Do you think, is that something you keep doing in the same season? How soon are you ready to take the next level of lessons? Or if you want to progress, how much time do you need to spend practicing on your own versus like, okay, just keep taking lessons?
Well, I would think there's got to be a balance between, getting the information, having someone coach you, and then taking that information and then applying it on your own. This is where an instructor comes into play where, I want to move to the next level. Well, there's going to be another skill set that they have to be taught to do, like you said, moguls. If in the beginner area, we're teaching, how to ski on the groom. they're usually in a wedge. And so they'll progress into what's called a wedge Christie, where they'll start matching. And then eventually they'll go to parallel. And then once they're in parallel, now they're going to probably want to start exploring more. They'll feel confident. And that's where your coach comes in, a skier coach. And they can assist you in making that next move.
Cool. We talked a lot about skills, obviously, but there's a big component of etiquette and safety on the mountain, which I think there should be some sort of a test before you jump on that chairlift.
Mhm.
Like, do you know what you're doing? Just for the sake of others. It's almost like driving down a highway, but knowing that you don't have to have a driver's license to be
Right.
on the highway. How do you think about etiquette and safety in terms of skills, and what part do lessons and instructors play in educating guests before getting on the mountain? And like, how important do you think that is? And if it was up to you, what would you want a sort of a ski test look like before somebody gets on a mountain?
Well, that's kind of near and dear to my heart, being that I was a patroller for 24 years. So, part of my job was making sure that the skier code was enforced. So what we do in the beginner lessons, it's a big piece of it, is the safety aspect of it. And that is covering there's actually 10 segments to the skier's code. And what we do, I actually have laminated mini handouts. And this is something that can be discussed on a lift, especially if we're on a longer lift. It's a good conversation piece there. And sometimes I'll just break that skier's code up as we go through the lesson. But that we do teach that, the skier's code, and that it, in fact, does cover the use of this ski lift and how to be safe, and how to, what's the etiquette on the slopes. So we do cover that.
That's amazing.
Yep.
To make sure that we keep the stoke high and make it enjoyable for everyone.
Right. I think that's people's biggest fear, is getting in an accident, in some kind of collision.
Do you have tips on how to pick a resort? If you live out east and you're thinking about getting into skiing, is it worth it for you to spend a couple $100s to come out west and then, spend a 30-year trip taking lessons? Or do you recommend go take lessons to your closest, cheapest ski resort, learn the basics, and then maybe you'll have a better enjoyable time when you go out west? How do you think about where to take a lesson, and what's sort of the ideal terrain to pick a ski resort for learning to ski?
Well, I think, like we said before, is if they have a certified ski school, that's your biggest piece right there. I like personally to go to the little places and support them. Like ours would be Hesperus, and there's plenty of still little ski mountains, little ski hills that you can do it relatively cheap. Once you start getting into the big ski resorts, it gets more expensive. Obviously, they have much more overhead. So I would tell you, if you have something that's nearby, that's probably your best bet. And then you graduate up to the big stuff, because then never it's starting to incur more of a cost if we start traveling.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to learn a little bit more about your background and what inspired you to become a ski instructor. What were you doing before? How long have you been in the ski industry?
Okay, so I was telling you about, I was a ski patroller for 24 years. And what happened, basically, it was a cost factor. So I'm in my 20s. I'm skiing 50 days a week. A year in Pennsylvania, and I needed a way to do it cheaper. So I'm like, okay, ski school, ski patrol. Well, I do like the medical side. That really intrigued me. So I dove into the ski patrol, National Ski Patrol. I was a member for 24 years now. I'm retired from it, and I'm an alumni. But within that, I went through my certifications that the National Ski Patrol offers, and I also became an instructor, a toboggan instructor. So my job was to take skiers that were already at an intermediate or higher intermediate level and show them the skills, teach them the skills that they need to run a toboggan with a patient in a safe and comfortable manner. So I did that for about 22 years. And for about 19 of those years, I was the coordinator for it. So I had all the lesson plans. I had, some people that were on staff with me. And so we shared that responsibility of teaching our new incoming patrollers. So after that, when we moved out west, I thought, let's try something a little easier, because it was taxing, on the body, running a sled, lifting people. So I went into ski school, And so now, like, what I've been doing is working on my certifications. I'm kind of playing catch up. A lot of people that are on our squad, or they've been in it for 20, 30 years or more, some 40 years. And, their certifications, they started that when they got there. So I'm kind of playing catch up. So I'm kind of trying to do as much as I can in my certifications to kind of just catch up and be able to teach at a higher level.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Dave. This has been so helpful. I've learned so much. If you had to leave us just with one piece of advice, but every skier, doesn't matter what your skill level is, to be able to keep skiing, not let it stop you and give up skiing or hang up your skis, or just general advice for everybody, what would it be to keep us skiing forever?
I think first of all, you want to have fun. It's got to be fun. And to have fun, you want to perform at your best level. So, like we said, fitness is a big thing. I enjoy it just because it's the outdoor experience. It's like a sense of freedom, making turns and just enjoying. If you're able to control your speed, it's just a fun time. So I would say, stay fit. If you have to, just pick and choose the days you go out, then do that. You don't need to ski in a blizzard. Pick the nice sunny days. We're fortunate here in Colorado to have a lot of sunny days. So utmost is fun.
Cool. Focus on fun.
Yep.
Awesome. And thank you so much.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it.